Welcome to KBS World Radio. You're now tuned into Korea24's Korea Book Club, where we explore the world of Korean literature. This is our weekend replay edition, playing back our book segment from Wednesday's show. I hope you enjoy it. I'm your host, Alana Hill. And today we're joined by literary critic Barry Welch. Barry, great to have you back with us.
Hello, great to be here, Alana.
So Barry, what are we going to be delving into today?
Today's book is Yoon Dong-ju, a critical biography by Song Woo-hye, translated by Flora M. Kim. And so, of course, this is about the life of one of Korea's most cherished poets, Yoon Dong-ju, who was born in 1917 and passed away in 1945, and is, of course, often called the country's national poet and is just a towering figure in modern Korean literature.
Now, this is a bit of a different kind of book than what we usually cover. Why are we covering this book this week?
So we are talking about Yoon Dong-ju this week because mid-February marks the anniversary of his passing. He died on the 16th of February 1945 in Fukuoka Prison, and he was just 27 years old. And so this date, this time of year, always invites a pause to remember his brief but luminous life and work. And historian and novelist Song Woo-hye has given us an in-depth look at him in her critical biography, which traces everything from the history of North Gando, now Yanbian in China, where Yoon was born, all the way to the story behind the publication of his only poetry collection, which was released after his death, Sky, Wind, Star and Poem. The Korean title is Hanul Kwa Baram Kwa Byol Kwa Shi. And it's a fantastic book. Just through clear and factual storytelling, Song brings to life who Yoon Dong-ju truly was and sets his life story against the harsh and chaotic backdrop of Japan's colonial rule over Korea. For the first time, it's available in English, and it was just published a month or two ago. And so it's accessible to even more readers who want to understand this remarkable Korean poet and the turbulent era that he lived through.
Well, it sounds like a powerful and, as you said, timely pick, and especially with the English translation now out, many more readers can finally access one of the most definitive portraits of Yoon and the colonial era reality that shaped his life and his poetry. And before we dive more into his poems, let's talk a bit more about who he was and why do so many Koreans still love his poetry today?
Yeah, right. So Yoon is absolutely hands down one of Korea's most cherished and beloved poets, and is called the national poet for a very good reason. And his life story is so sad. He died at such a young age. He lived through such a difficult period in Korean history. But in that short life, during this very difficult time, he wrote over 100 poems, and these are poems that feel even to this day incredibly honest, incredibly gentle, and are just infused with a quiet strength that Korean readers and international readers just love and still respond to.
What are some of his most famous ones?
Right, so this aspect of self-reflection, mirror-like self-reflection, is what makes lots of his poetry feel so personal and timeless. And Yoon wasn't writing these big, dramatic poems or, protesting against the injustices of the world. He was quietly turning that poetic lens inward. He was wrestling with his own conscience, and we see him struggling with a sense of shame or purity. Lots of the poems have this sort of gentle aching for something better amid all of the hardships of the period. And it's like he's having an honest conversation with his own soul. And it's that vulnerability that is really very affecting. I think that's what most readers like. And like I mentioned, one of the most famous is Forward. That was written in 1941. And those lines are some of the most iconic lines in Korean poetry, Until I Breathe My Last Breath, death. I wish to face my sky without shame. And he talks about suffering, even when the wind stirs the leaves, how he loves all dying things with the heart of someone who sings to the stars and promises to walk the path that's given to him. And it ends with this very soft but beautiful line, "Tonight again the stars are blown by the wind." And again, it's just quoted constantly. So to me, it's a very Korean, I just associate it with Korea now. It's like a creed for living with integrity, living with hope. And especially in tough times.
Now, Barry, we touched a bit on his educational background. He also studied in Japan. How did that fit into his life as a Korean under colonial rule?
Right, yeah. So he headed to Japan in early 1942, and this was after graduating from Yonhee College. And it was a bold move at the time for a young Korean because, of course, this was during the Japan's colonial grip on Korea. The Korean language was quite heavily suppressed. There were forced assimilation policies that were even ramping up at the time. And so going to study in Japan was complicated and risky. He first enrolled in April 1942 in the English Literature Department at Rikyo University in Tokyo. But he only stayed there for one semester through the spring and summer. But he wrote poems like 쉽게 쓰여진 시, poem easily written, which captures a sense of being in an alien country with rain whispering outside his small dorm room. He actually went home briefly for a summer vacation that year, and there's a very kind of poignant photograph of him from August 1942 back home. Then in October, he transferred to Doshisha University in Kyoto. This was another school with an English literature program, and it was there that he was reunited with his cousin and his best friend Song Woo-hye, and he'd been studying nearby. Why did he move? Some people speculate it was partly to be closer to Song, or maybe because this university had some kind of special meaning for him. It was a poet that he beloved called Chung Ji-young had studied there. But life in Japan during this era was very tense for Koreans. The colonial government was pushing total mobilization, forcing loyalty oaths and conscription talks and cultural erasure. And Yoon kept writing his poems in Korean anyway, which was in itself a subtle act of resistance. He refused to let his language or identity be erased. And his work from this period gets even more introspective. It's full of that inner struggle about shame and dignity and the path ahead.
And he carried that quiet inward resistance for years. And Barry, you mentioned that, very sadly, he died very young in prison. What exactly happened? Yeah,
right. So this is, it's heartbreaking. So after his arrest, he was sentenced to 2 years and sent to Fukuoka Prison. He died there on February 16th, 1945. He was 27. It was just months before Korea's liberation. And the exact cause is unclear. Some theories point to harsh treatment or starvation, or even medical experiments, but it's uncertain. We don't know for definite. But he did suffer a lot. However, even in prison, he wrote poems. And Song Woo-hye, who was there with him, died shortly after Yoon did. And I think this is partly why his work feels so poignant. It's almost as if he knew his time was short and he poured everything into living without regret.
A moving and important story, and one that still feels very present. Barry, thanks so much for guiding us through Yoon's life and legacy today.
Okay, take care.